Welcome everyone. Today we're going to talk about the book and movie differences between the Hunger Games trilogy.
The Hunger Games is a very good and famous trilogy written and partly directed by Susan Collins. It is definitely worth seeing the three films. However, this first one does not need the other films or books to be understood. Each one has its own different theme with a certain clear relationship between them. But since it is the first and where the theme of the story begins, it can be seen or read alone. Clearly, as in any trilogy, it is better to see the rest of the film, but in this case, not to understand it better, but to complete the story. It is supposed to be a straight adaptation, but there is a lot of differences on it that were approved by Susan. In the characters, there is a certain difference on how we can imagine them in the reading. Both Katniss and Gale were supposed to be gray-eyed with brown hair, and yes, they found actors similar to those described. However, the eyes of both are light blue, not gray. Something to note is that Liam Hemsworth, who plays Gale, is one of the actors that is more alike to the character. Differences are also seen in Peeta, played by Judge Hutcherson. Peeta in the book is tall, even taller than Katniss, but in the movie, this is the other way around. Also, the fact that his eyes are brown and not blue like in the book, or that his hair is shorter than expected. One of the things that changes in the film is the structure itself in the fact of perspective, since the book is written in first person. This doesn't mean that the film is not going to be understood, but it is a very obvious change. There are changes in scenes and events that many people have noticed. For example, as one of the most important scenes in the story changes, since in the book the Mockingjay Pink is given directly to Katniss, but in the movie she got it in a market, like supposed to be a lucky pin. It makes it more symbolic in the book. But this doesn't mean that it's a bad adaptation of this great book. In the film, Katniss is seen selecting a view from her window with a remote control in her bedroom in the Capitol apartment. She gets stuck in a picture of the forest and is emotionally affected because it reminds her of the woods beyond District 12. But in the book, only mentions that she can change the view of her window, and she uses to put the forest where she felt safe, but doesn't mention like the rest of the details. There are many changes in certain details. However, the change is not that big, and it is a movie and book that is worth seeing. The message that is left in both is very similar.
The second part of this story is called Catching Fire, both the movie and the book. This is a great follow-up for the first part of the story that we already heard about, and it is supposed to be a straight adaptation. But about the plot, of course, it was not as detailed as the book, because for it to be turned into a movie, they had to exclude some important scenes that I would have liked to see. The first one is Bonnie and Trill. They both are characters that appear only in the book at the beginning. They meet Katniss when she's hunting in the woods, and they explain her that they were escaping District 8 and they were trying to go to District 13, even though supposedly it didn't exist. This would give us a hint of what would happen at the end of the book and at the end of the second movie. Yes, so the second part of the story that I would have liked to see was Gail's personality and feelings, specifically in the moment that they were trying to run to the woods. Why is this? Because in the movie, Gail is portrayed as a serious man and a serious character that was not excited for this at all and just tries to convince Katniss to not go. But in the books, he was really excited and he started making plans and even told Katniss he loved her like it was the most meaningful thing in the world. The third scene was Plutarch Heavensby and his watch. In the movie, he just shows Katniss his watch when they are at the ball. But in the book, this watch has a mockingjay and tries to explain us that he is not a bad character and that he's not in the side of the capital, but that he really is trying to help Katniss. One thing I can perfectly recall is characters and castings. Why is this? Because they were amazing and they portrayed their characters pretty well. I'm going to mention these four because they are like the four biggest characters introduced in this part of the story, and they are allies of Katniss and previous victors that compete with her in the Hunger Games. First, Joanna Mason, portrayed by Jenna Malone, Finico Dare, portrayed by Sam Claflin, and P.T. and Warriors, that are portrayed by Jeffrey Wright and Amanda Plummer. They perfectly assume the role of the characters. For example, Joanna shows how brave she is and how much of a fighter she is. Finico there presents how self-absorbed he is, but how also loyal and how he tries to make everything good. And also BT and Warriors, they are portrayed perfectly of how smart they are and how they compete against the other people that are in the arena with using only their minds and not their bodies. The movie itself. The movie itself is worth a watch and it's a great follow-up, as I mentioned, to the previous movie. And even though these details are totally excluded, the great idea and big picture is portrayed perfectly. And it talks about topics that are important, such as politics and feelings, and how sometimes the authority is better.
Mockingjay is the third book of the trilogy of the Hunger Games. However, we think that it is not the best one of all the trilogy. I'm gonna talk about the few differences that the movie and the book have. The first difference is the dozen of roses. For example, in the novel, when Katniss is in the bunker, a dozen of roses are planted outside the bunker for her. But in the movie, 1,000 of roses are dropped from the sky when she was in the bunker. Another difference is the rescue of Pita, because in the book, you can see like all the little details, it's more explained, but in the movie, all the things are happen very quickly and a lot of details are missing. Another difference is the life in the district 13, because in the book, you can see that it is a very ugly place to live and the life is very difficult there. But in the movie, you never see the real conditions that the district has. The only thing that they say is that it is very strict and the people that lives there lives in a very weird way because they can't go out. Another thing that it's different, it's the narration of Katniss, because in the book, Katniss starts the story when she's in District 12, but in the movie, Katniss is in the hospital when the story starts. And finally, we have the Pita's torture tales, because in the movie, Pita doesn't say anything about the torture, but in the book, he explains like all the things that happened when he was there. well, the thing with the characters is that in this movie they are new characters, but they are not so relevant. So, um, about the movie itself, it is a good adaptation. It is not the best one. There are a lot of missing details. If you compare it with the book, it's a little bit simple. And the book has a lot of action scenes that are not included in the movie. And this is the only default that this movie has. But in general, it's a very good adaptation. Um, and that's it. That is the only default that it has.
Thank you very much.